Hello, friends. Welcome back to the House of Oblamon. I'm your host, Dr. Oblamon. And on today's episode of Movies After Midnight, I've got a mail call. I've got some thrift store scores. I have the next 5 movies in that segment I've been doing about my favorite films from when I was a kid to watch with my friends and my family. But to start with tonight, if you'll remember, I featured this Godzilla in one of my videos that I had picked up after my Godzilla, when I had that score where I got that Godzilla motherload, all those great, Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, or Ghidra, however you pronounce it, and those other Godzillas, the resin models. And I had picked up this Godzilla GMK, but he was missing his tail. I had mentioned that I would still go back to the thrift store every night to see if that tail showed up. And sure enough, one of the guys that works there, shout out to my good buddy Jay Rose, he found the tail. He found the tail. Broken, but complete. So I just wanted to show this off here right at the beginning. You just stick it in. It's like a magnet, actually. There we go. Now he can stand in the zone. I'll get that glued on. All right, so let's dig into our mail call. I've got some Blu-rays here. I picked these up. If you remember my last video, we talked about in those first 5 movies. One of them was the Escape from New York that I had on VHS. Now I picked this up on Blu-ray for the bonus scenes to see what the transfer is like. Hopefully, in all that blackness that takes place at night here, we can see some of those details. But also, it's time to introduce this film to my son, Dr. Hawk. Unfortunately, he's not here with me tonight. He's usually here manning the camera, but he'll be surprised this weekend when we go to watch this film. He doesn't... I try to get him to watch on VHS, but he likes the high-def stuff, so this was one of my favorite movies. I saw it when I was his age for the first time, so now I want to introduce it to him. The next flick I have for him to see on Blu-ray, because I have this on VHS as well too, but Pumpkinhead. Man, oh man, one of the greatest movie creatures ever designed by Stan Winston, of course, who actually directed this movie as well. But I want my son to see it in all that high-def glory. He's going to love, love, love this monster flick. So I'm really excited to introduce him to this weekend as well, too. And in the mail, this was just released on Blu-ray. How could I not pick up Hot Dog? Oh my goodness, I don't know if you've seen this movie. If you were into skateboarding like I was, there was, The Search for Animal Chin, there was Gleaming the Cube. We watched those movies over and over again. And when it was ski season, it was always Hot Dog. The best ski movie out there, period. Total trash. Total sleaze, though, as well. Totally inappropriate for kids. This one has been added with extra nudity. So I can't wait to tear into this. And one of my favorite scenes, my favorite scenes with my friends watching this, of course, was at the end, the climax when they had the Chinese downhill, when all the teams lined up with ski down the hill, and they'd be knocking each other over. They'd have all these different tricks up their sleeves to see who would make it to the bottom first. Growing up where I did in Minette's Point, a little cottage community on the outside of Barrie there, we had woods, right, for building tree forts. We had the creek for fishing for smelt, the lake, of course, to swim in, and we had this great gully that had 3 hills that started off and merged into one. And we'd always begin off, we'd have the people on the inner tubes, those on the crazy carpets, they were the craziest, the saucers, the GT snow racers, and we'd always slam into each other at the midpoint to see who would make it to the bottom of the Chinese downhill. Anyways, Hot Dog, so happy to see this on Blu-ray. I was never able to find it on VHS, just a rare movie to find, and now released on Blu-ray. Really excited about that. I got a couple thrift store scores. This going in the opposite. This is the most fun. This is the least fun movie. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you had a chance to check it out. Death Sentence, so good, but so bleak, so dark. Kevin Bacon is really great in this film, really intense. John Goodman, though, oh my god, he steals the show. So if you like Death Wish, if you like revenge flick, vigilante revenge flicks, which are my favorite. Rolling Thunder. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. This one is definitely worth checking out. But it is very, very bleak. Be forewarned. Really happy to score here, especially for Spoopy Sundays coming up. I'm going to throw this in. Check it out. Tales from the Crypt. What a great show. Great special effects. All those cameo actors. So really happy to score that. Okay, so let's talk about those movies that I mentioned. Watching with my friends, watching with my family. I did the first 5 tapes, which was The Road Warrior, Escape from New York, like we mentioned there, Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, and then of course there was Conan the Barbarian, my favorite fantasy film of all time, and one of my favorite horror movies of all time, American Werewolf in London. And I'm right here with this tape here, my next one of my favorite horror movies of all time, Jaws. Oh my gosh, obsessed with Jaws. This poster, this image here, before I even saw the movie Jaws, I had a game. It was the Jaws game where you had to kind of pick out the pieces from his mouth. There was the scuba diving equipment, there was the license plate, or the jaws would snap shut. So I didn't even know what this was a movie. I knew it as a game first. The image, though, totally captured my imagination. And then I believe I saw Jaws 2 first, actually, because we saw it in the drive-in theater. Before I even saw Jaws 2, but of course, hooked me. Hook, line, and sinker. And then, of course, the first movie, catching it on television every single time it came out. We rented it all the time. Obsessed with Jaws. Growing up on the lake, swimming all the time. I didn't quite understand the difference between lakes and oceans when I was that young. I always thought that for sure there was a giant shark. So even though we're having so much fun on the lake, in the inner tubes, floating around on the rafts, I always was slightly terrified. Next up, oh my gosh, Terminator. I think this was the first R-rated film I saw in the theater. And my brothers and I, we love this movie. Watched it to death. It speaks for itself. Oh my gosh. Now this movie, this one we tried to live this movie. our friends and us, we put together a gang. We all had our own code names. Of course, everybody wanted to be Ajax, but the Warriors. We basically tried to live this. I talked about on the last video about The Exorcist being one of those films that we'd rent all the time. It was the idea of just, everybody said it was the scariest movie ever, right? So if you could tough it out, the scariest movie ever. I actually really, even though I've seen this film so many times, I allow myself to get sucked into it. Especially the first half of the movie freaks me out even more than the last half. I can still remember the hair standing up. I still get that feeling when in the dream sequences. This is just one, hands down, one of the best horror movies ever made as well too. But this film, oh my gosh, The Evil Dead. When we talk about our friends in the gang, my house, we had a pool. All the parents were always away working. We were totally unsupervised. So my mom thought it would be a great idea just everybody come hang out at our house. So we always had pop and chips and popsicles and freezies in the pool, and we watched movies all the time. But for the initiation to make it into our gang, for any new kids that came to the neighborhood, they had to watch The Evil Dead. This was our initiation. And as anyone, for example, my cousins, as they would get older and want to hang out with us, they had to watch The Evil Dead. They had to show that they could make it through without running away screaming. Terrifying film, so good, but that was our initiation to that. All right, friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me here on the House of Oblamon. I'm going to throw up some of these photos. I'm posting some more digital scribbles on my Instagram channel, Oblamonster. So see the pics at Dr. Oblamon, the drawings at Oblamonster, and follow along with these videos at YouTube under the House of Oblamon. So till next time, have a great night.